What is going on, guys? It's Modern Warfare here and welcome back to another episode of Coding Tutorials. So in this episode I'm going to be introducing you guys into Call of Duty modding and how to create an XRPC tool to mod Call of Duty games. And in this video we're looking specifically at console commands. It's the first thing we're going to be covering in Call of Duty modding, which is console commands. If you've ever used the console on the PC version of the game, where you can open up the little console text box at the top of the screen and you can enter in commands. This is basically us being able to do that from an XRPC tool and send commands to the console that way. And there's quite a lot of cool stuff you can do with this. It's you can do a hell of a lot of stuff on the older COD games, anything from like World at War up or COD 4 up to Black Ops 1 Zombies. And then on the newer CODs, a lot of stuff has been patched, but it's still used quite extensively in newer COD games as well for just doing stuff like XP lobbies, setting your XP per kill, per death, stuff like FOV and time scale and game score limit, game time limit. All that stuff is done through console commands. So even in the new COD games, console commands are also used quite a lot. Third person in newer CODs as well is done with console commands. So there's a lot of stuff that can be done with console commands, and in the older CODs, and in this example, I'm going to be modding Black Ops 1 Zombies, because on Black Ops 1 Zombies there's quite a lot of stuff you can do with console commands, like no-clip, God mode, drop weapon, give weapons, various other things. So we're going to go over that in this video. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and open up Visual Studio 2013. And if you have Visual Studio 2012 or higher, you can change the theme by going to Tools, Options, and then selecting the color theme. By default, it's on light. Now, I've changed it to dark because I find this theme is a bit, it's not great on the eyes. It kind of hurts my eyes after a while if I've been coding it for a long time. So I prefer to use the dark theme. But if you guys don't like this theme for the tutorials, then let me know in the comments section. I just find this much easier on the eyes for me when I'm coding for long periods of time. So I highly recommend you try it out anyway. Okay, so we're going to create a new project called Black Ops Tool. And we need to make sure it's a Visual C# application and it's a Windows Form application that we're creating. And I'm going to skip over the stuff that we did, just, you know, I'm not going to go into detail on the stuff we've already done in episode 0 and episode 1. So if you get confused at any of the stuff that I'm doing to set this tool up, then check episode 1 or episode 0. There'll be a link in the description which will take you to the playlist, and that playlist will have all the coding tutorial episodes I've done so far. So I highly recommend you go back and check those older videos if you haven't watched them yet. Okay, so inside the properties, we go to text. We're going to change this to Black Ops Mod Tool title, and then we're going to go maximize box. I want to make sure that's set to false because I don't want to people to be able to full screen the application, and I also don't want it to be resized, so I'm going to change the form border style to fixed single, and that'll do for now. Now I'm going to add my references, so I'm going to right click on references, add a reference. I'm going to add my xdevkit.dll and my devcomponents.net bar. So I'm going to add those in, and I'm also going to add in my XRPC class straight into the project right there. There it is, XRPC. So now I'm going to right click on Form 1 and View Code. And inside here, we're going to add our references in. So we're going to say that we're using devcomponents.net bar. We're also going to be using xdevkit, and we're also going to be using XRPC lib. I'm not using xdevkit++ for this tutorial because we don't need any of the extra features that xdevkit++ provides for this tool, because all we're doing is console commands in this tutorial. Okay, so now we can change the form to one of .NET bars. So I'm going to choose an Office 2007 form. I'll just set this one up in the same way I did with the Sonic Mod Tool. So I'm going to create a style manager, drag that on. I'm going to make that 2010 black, and black for the color tint. And then for the actual form itself, I'm going to change the back color to a white, and I'm going to change the top right corner size to 0 and the top left corner size to 0. And I'm also going to turn off enable glass so that we don't get Windows 7's glass border on the form when we run it. So there we go. This is going to be my template for the tool. And I'm also going to go ahead and add a button now, because the first button that we add is our button to connect to the console. So I'm going to add the button and just drag this down. So this button is going to be called connect, because it's connecting to the console. And we're also going to just change the style of this a little bit, color table to 2007 with background. And I'm also going to change the shape to sharp edges. And we'll make that a little bit smaller, and I'll also give it an icon. And the reason it takes so long just to do the first button is because we can just copy and paste this button after once we've created it. So for the other buttons in the tool, I can just copy and paste this and I won't have to change the style, all the style options. Okay, so we've got our connect button. If I change the actual name, and if I actually change the name in the code to our connect button, we have our connect button. So we're going to double click it, and that creates the method for it. So the first thing we need to do is create a new instance of XRPC. So I'm going to do XRPC equals new XRPC. A lot of XRPCs there. And now inside the connect button, I could do XRPC.connect, but the first thing I do when I create a new method is to create a try and catch exception. And what that'll do is just basically catch anything that causes it to crash. So normally, if for whatever reason anything we do inside the try statement causes the program to crash, then instead of crashing, it will just run everything inside the catch statement. So we can just put an error message in here and it'll stop the program from crashing. A bit of error handling that we can just do there. So what we're going to do is we're going to do xrpc.connect to connect to the console. And then we're going to say if xrpc.activeConnection is true, then we're going to create a message box ex.show. And in this message box, we're going to put the message, which is successfully connected to console. And then we're going to give it the title connected. And we're also going to go ahead and give it, we're going to give it a button. The button is going to be an OK button. And we're also going to give it an icon, which is going to be an information icon. So that'll be our message for the successful connection. And then I'll just copy this message box for a unsuccessful connection. So else we'll say XRPC, or we'll paste it in our message box, and we'll say XRPC connection failed. And we'll change the title to an error, and we'll change the icon to an error icon. So now we have our message box for successful connection and failed to connect. And then we'll also take this message box and put that in the catch statement. So if it crashes, it will say XBDM connection failed, because normally if it crashes, then it's because you don't have the console added in neighborhood, or you don't have SDK installed or something like that. Okay, so that's our connection button done. So now we can actually start working on creating our mod button so that we can send our console commands. So the first console command is going to be noclip. So I'm going to put noclip in as the first console command that we're going to try and do. You can just give it a different icon. Just use tick icons for everything. So we got our noclip button. I'm going to change the actual text in here to noclip button. So what we need to do now is just find the offset for console command for zombies on the latest title update, which is TU11. You can do that just by searching in Google. If you just search in Google for Black Ops 1 TU11 offsets, then you'll usually get a 7 sins post that somebody's gone ahead and linked a bunch of offsets for the game, which is great. 7 sins is a really good place to go. They've got community code lists for different games that have all the offsets that people have found so far, and you know, all the offsets for the latest title update. So it says TU11, so hopefully this will be correct. So we've got this list here, and you can see we've got the console command offset for zombies. There's also a console command offset for multiplayer. And the reason for this is that they run on different XEX files. So there'll be a different offset for console command for zombies and a different XEX for different offset for console command on multiplayer as well. So we're doing zombies right now, so we're looking for this offset right here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Now, it will be either labeled as console command or CMD or cbuff or cbuff add text or cbuff underscore add text is usually what you'll find console command listed under. It's usually cbuff or cbuff add text. Okay, so we've got our offset. We're going to double click the button to create the method. And what we're going to do is, again, create our try and catch exceptions. And we'll just put like a generic error message in for this. So if it fails to connect, we'll just say connection failed, or failed to send command. So we'll just do that. Okay, so to actually set a console command, you're going to do XRPC. And unlike in episode 1, where what we were doing was we were setting memory, we were using the .setMemory command in XRPC, which allows you to basically write data to a specific location in memory. We're not doing that this time. We're actually calling a function inside the game, which is the console command function. So we're calling that inside the game. So we need to use xrpc.call, and then we paste in our offset, which is not that message box. So I'll go ahead and recopy that. So we'll paste in our offset, and then we have to give the actual player number or player ID of the person that we're trying to send this console command to. Console commands typically will only work on you, and usually if you're the host, certain commands will work when you're not host, like, you know, enabling FPS counter or changing your FOV. That can be done off host, but host, a lot of stuff is host only. So for the player ID, you're just going to put 0, and then you're going to do comma, and then the command that you want to send, which in my case is noclip. So I can just enter noclip, and that should work. So let's go ahead and try this. There is a 2-second delay on my capture card, so that will cause hopefully it won't cause too many problems, but there will be a slight delay. Okay, so we've got the tool, we're going to click connect, and that connects it to the console, successfully connected to console. And I'm going to have to reconnect my controller and hop on the game, so resume game. Okay, so I'm going to click no clip, and as you can see in the top left hand corner it says no clip on, and I can now fly outside the map, and that's no clip. So really easy, we just called that function inside the game and we've given it the command noclip, and now we've got noclip enabled. Now the cool thing about noclip is that it's a toggleable command by default, so if I click the button again it will turn it off, and it now says noclip off at the top left, and that's it. Noclip has been turned off, and we can turn it on and turn it back off. It's a toggleable command. So that's noclip, and that's basically how you do console commands. So to go into more detail, because there's quite a few different things you can do with console commands. So if we wanted to do another command, then let's say we want to do God mode as well. So we'll go ahead and copy and paste this, and we'll say we want God mode. So I'm going to call this button God mode, and up here we're going to call this God mode button, and we're going to double click it, and then of course I can just copy and paste this now and enter the command God, which is the command for God mode. Now the thing about this that makes it a little bit messy is that we are having to put in the offset and then the player ID as well as the command every time we want to call this, and we're going to be calling this command a lot of times because this whole tool is just going to be using console commands. So it might be a good idea just to make a method to do this for you. So that's what we're going to do right now. I'm going to create a new method, a new private void, a new function called sendCMD. Call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it sendCMD. It's going to take in a string, which is the command. So that's going to be the command that we send, like no clip or God mode. And then we can just copy this in here, and instead of no clip, it's going to be the command that it takes in. So whatever you supply this function is going to be what it sends. So now when I want to send a console command, I don't have to put the offset and then the player ID anymore. I can just call the function sendCMD and then give it the command I want it to enable, which is no clip, and that's it. That should work all the same with less code. So I can go ahead and do that, and I'll do that in here. Another thing I could do to make it a bit tidier as well is create another function called private void error message, which will just contain the generic error message, which is failed to connect to console, because this message box will appear on every button as well inside the catch statement. So instead of creating the message box every single time, I'll just call this function instead. Just like that. Okay, so that'll do us for now. I need to do the same thing here as well, actually. Just cut this bit out, paste this in. Okay, so that's a bit neater. So we've got no clip and God. So God mode. So let's see if that works. So we'll connect to the console, we'll resume game, and we'll click God mode. And look in the top left hand corner, it says God mode on. Click it again, God mode off, because it's also a toggleable command. So there's quite a few toggleable commands where you can just click the button once and it'll just revert whatever value it was set to before. So it works with console commands that can either be on or off, 1 or 0. So it'll just revert whatever value it was on to its new value. So if it was on 0, then it will change it to 1. If it was on 1, it will change it to 0. So it will just keep toggling it on and off every time you click the button, which is really useful. No clip is like that. God mode's like that. No target, I think, is like that. Demigod mode is like that as well. So there's a few commands that are toggable like that. So the next one we'll do, I'm not going to do demigod mode and no target, simply because you know, they work in the same way. So the next one I'm going to do is third person, which is slightly different. So I'm going to create third person button, and in here we're going to call this third person button. We're going to double click, create the method. Again, we can just copy and paste this now. And the command for third person is cg underscore third person. And if you're confused about these commands like cg underscore third person, how do you know that's the third person command? You can just look for a Dvar list online. It's really easy. For example, so if I just search for Black Ops 1 Zombies Dvar list, then here's one on Next Gen Update that has a bunch of commands. So you can just look up a Dvar list, which will give you all the commands. Third person will be in there somewhere. So we've got CG third person. Now this should be a toggleable command, to be honest, because it can either be on or off. CG third person, it's just, it doesn't have a specific value like 50 or 100 or 2.0. It's either on or off. Third person is either on or it's off. So you think that this would work. It should work, but if you look here, if I click third person, nothing has happened. I click it multiple times, nothing's happening whatsoever. So third person doesn't work like that for some reason. So what you have to do, if it's a command that can either be 1 or 0, on or off, then you just need to add the keyword toggle in front of the command. So toggle space, then the command, which is cg underscore third person, And now what should happen is it should work. It will toggle it between 1 or 0 now. So if we go ahead and display the game and get the tool up and click third person, and I'm now in third person. So that works. And if I click it again, third person is off, so it turns it off. So I can turn it on, turn it off. Again, 2-second delay, a bit annoying, but you can see that working there. So that is how you can toggle commands if they're not toggleable by default, like noclip and God mode are. Okay, so the next thing that I can show you guys is being able to also set something like timescale, or setting a command that is not 1 or 0, not on or off, one that has a specific value. So timescale is a good one. So I'm going to create a new button here called slow motion, because we're going to put it into slow motion using timescale. Put the game into slow motion using timescale. So this is going to be slow-mo button, and we'll double click to create the code. Okay, so what we can do here, so the command for timescale is just timescale, one word. So we can do timescale, and we can do something like 0.2, and that will put us into slow motion. So if I start this and we open up our game, we'll connect, and if I click, so right now you can see everything's running at normal speed. If I click slow motion, it's now running in slow-mo. So there we go, slow motion. But we have a little bit of a problem right now, and the problem is, how do we switch it back to what it was on before? I'm stuck in slow motion now, and I don't know how to change it back because I may not know what the default value for timescale is. Well, I do know what the default value for timescale is, but if I didn't know what the default value was, then there is a way that you can actually reset the value without having to know what its default value was in the first place. So in order to do that, you just take the command that you want to reset, and you just use the keyword reset in front of the Dvar. So reset timescale, and what that should do is it should put timescale back to normal. So I'm still in slow motion right now, as you can see, and if I click the button, it's gone back to normal speed. Okay, so there you go. You can also reset the value even if you don't know what the default value is. The default value for timescale, by the way, I believe is 1.1. But if you don't know, if you didn't know what the value is, or you're using a different Dvar and you didn't know what the initial value was, then you can use the reset command to reset it back to its default value. Okay, so let's say I want to toggle this now. I want to turn slow motion on and off each time I press the button, like I'm able to do with third person and God mode. Well, again, we can use the toggle command for this. However, because the value is not as simple as on or off, it can be different values. It can be 0.2, 1.1, 2.5. It can be all these different values. What you can do is you can use the toggle command, but you need to actually give it the values you want it to toggle between. So I can say I want it to toggle between 0.2, which is slow motion, and 1.1, which is default. So now it will switch between these two values each time I press the button. So we'll go ahead and start up the tool and connect. Okay, so I click slow motion, and that's me in slow motion. And then click it again, and back to normal. Okay, so you can toggle commands that way. You can give it the value. I think you can actually give it more values. I might be able to give it like 2.3 as well, and then it would toggle. But then you press it once, it would set it to 0.2, and then press it again, it would set it to 1.1. Press it again, it would set it to 2.3. So you can toggle it between different values. Okay, so another thing you can do with console commands that's pretty cool is you can bind commands to buttons. So rather than having to say I want to, rather than having to click the noclip button in the tool to enable noclip on my character, I could actually bind it to a button on my controller. So I can just press, say, the A button on the controller, and it would toggle noclip on and off rather than having to click the button in the tool. In order to do that, we'll just call this bind no clip. So bind no clip. I'm just going to call this button or binds button. And we'll double click this, create the method, copy and paste our code. Okay, so in order to bind, say, no clip to a button, what we can do is we can do bind. So the keyword is bind space, then the button that you want to bind, which is button underscore A, which is the keyword for the A button, and then space the command that you want to send when you press the A button. So the command is no clip, so I'm going to put no clip, and that should bind the A button to no clip. So if we run this now and have a look, so I'm going to connect, and right now if I press A, I'm jumping because that's what the A button is bound to by default. But if I click bind no clip, now when I press the A button, it puts me into no clip mode. And if I press A on the controller again, that puts me back out of no clip. So you can also, as you can see there, you can also bind Dvars to buttons as well on the controller, which is pretty cool. And another thing you can do is you can also bind multiple commands. You can even send multiple commands. If I wanted to send God mode plus CG underscore FOV 100, which would change my field of view. So I did this in the God mode command. So rather than having to send a separate command or run the function a second time to run a different Dvar within the same button, I can just do it within one command by separating it with a semicolon right here, as you can see. So now when I click the God mode button, because I added that to the God mode button, didn't I? If I click God mode, then it enables God mode, but as you can see, it's also changed my field of view. So you can also do that. You can bind multiple commands. Well, you could bind multiple commands to one button by using that separator. Semicolon is a separator. Or you can also just send multiple commands by calling the function once and using the semicolon as a separator. Okay, so I think we're pretty much done on stuff I wanted to show you with button binds and with console commands, how to use console commands. Just as another example, I can show you a couple of other commands that work on Black Ops 1. So let's see if we've got give ammo works. So I can do give ammo and call this ammo button, and you can kind of like create quite a substantial tool just by doing this. So we've got give ammo. If I double click, copy and paste this, really quick with console commands to just add options into the tool. So what else do we want? We want give ammo, which is just give space ammo. So I can enter that command, and then I can also do something like drop weapon. So drop weapon, oops, drop weapon, and then call this weapon button. Double click. The command for drop weapon is just drop weapon, one word. So I can do drop weapon, and that'll drop the current gun. So lots of stuff that you can do with console commands. Quite a lot of stuff you can do. Okay, so this is our basic tool that we've created. Let's go and see if those other mods work that I've just added in here. So again, we'll connect. We will, let's see. So you can see I've got 8 bullets in my clip and only 2 in reserve. If I click give ammo, that should give me back up to maximum ammunition on the gun, which I have. So that works. And if I drop weapon now, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do this actually, because I don't actually have a second weapon, so it might screw up here. I don't know. Let's try drop weapon. Oh no, that worked. So it's dropped my weapon on the ground. I now have no weapon. You can see it there on the ground, and if I hold X, I can pick it back up. Okay, so those commands work. So you can really experiment, just try different commands. You might, not all the commands are in that Dvar list I found as well. There's lots of other ones, especially if you look for older, if you look for a Dvar list for like World at War and COD 4, a lot of those commands will carry over to the other games as well. Well, the other older games like Black Ops 1 Zombies and stuff. So you can look at commands for that and just kind of experiment and see what works. As you can see, there's quite a lot here that we could have added as well. So in the next video, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you guys how to use different UI elements for the different mods in the different mods in the game, so that you can create a tool that has more variety and it's just, you know, has better UI design. Because the problem with this, and I have seen a lot of mod tools that do this, where they just use buttons for everything. So as I've kind of purposely done that in this tool just to kind of showcase my point, where every option in the tool is just a single button. Whereas for certain situations, it's better to use different UI elements. So for slow motion, for timescale, it might have been better to use a slider, where I could slide the bar to go fast speed or slow motion or normal speed. So for various other things, give weapon is another one. I was going to show you an example in this video, but we're kind of short for time now, so I'm going to do that in the next video. It's kind of more relevant to the next video anyway, which is for doing something like giving weapon. So if I wanted to give the ray gun, then yeah, I could select raygun underscore upgraded ZM for the upgraded pack-a-punched ray gun. Copy another button out here just for an example. Call this give weapon, and we will call this weapon button. Oh, I already called another one that. Give weapon button. Okay, so we double click this. Again, I'll do the same thing. So the command for give weapon is just give and then space the weapon code name, which right here is ray underscore gun underscore upgraded underscore ZM for zombies. So if I do that, then that will give me the ray gun, the upgraded ray gun when I click the button. So I'm going to connect and click give weapon. And there we go, I have the ray gun upgraded. So that works, but the thing is, what if we wanted to do something like give multiple weapons? So, I mean, right now that's just giving ray gun, so that would just be like give ray gun. So that would just be something like give ray gun. And then if I wanted to do all the other buttons that are in here, then I would have to have a separate button for every single gun, to give myself every single gun, and have a separate button in the tool going all the way down for each weapon, which is just a really bad design. So that's what we're covering in the next episode of coding tutorials, where we're going to be looking at using sliders and various other UI elements like checkboxes and also combo boxes, which is what I would use for giving different weapons, where you can just put all the weapons in a list and then you just select from a drop down list the weapon that you want and then click the button to apply that in game. So that's what we're covering in the next episode. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, or you found the information useful. Go ahead and leave a like if you did, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Comment if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.
I'm shuffling.